Yeah, Mary, neighbors are primarily concerned about this upper deck possibly toppling down onto a moving car or falling onto someone right here on the street. Seattle's going through another building boom.
We've just come to accept it.
But even for the most hardened veterans of change,
Pretty much the homeless have just taken over both sides of the street.
Alex Hardy admits what's being constructed on 8th Avenue Northwest in Ballard
And over the weekend, they put up walls.
is a new one.
It's insane.
Hardy works at Camco Electric across the street from what appears to be a double-decker.
And it's growing daily. I don't know if they're going to do a triple-decker.
An entire top floor is being built above this camper, parked behind Rubens and Fremont Brewing in a high-traffic area surrounded by several residential streets.
We're worried it's going to maybe fall down.
Neighbor Lane Imbler-Bremner says he first noticed the project going up last week, so he used the city's Find It, Fix It app to report the problem, but says so far no response.
We feel like they have more rights than us. I mean, to go up in our house, we would have to have several permits.
It's called a shack.
It's called a shack? We asked the people living inside why they're doing this.
None of your business, just go away.
They weren't interested in sharing details. Complicating matters, there's confusion about regulating this monstrosity. The Department of Transportation is responsible for ticketing and towing RVs, but a spokesperson says, to my knowledge, I have never seen anything like this. In other words, there's no playbook or ordinance to stop structures from being built on top of motorhomes parked on Seattle's public streets. Is that structure safe? You don't think it's going to fall over?
It's not my business.
Councilmember Dan Strauss represents Ballard. When I asked him what he plans on doing about this latest issue, he put the blame on Mayor Jenny Durkin, sending us a statement that reads in part, I am working with service providers directly because the mayor's office has not been responsive to addressing homelessness in District 6. As for the mayor, no response to our questions or the criticism. Elise Vincentini owns the Downtown Dog Lounge nearby, and the frustration is setting in.
I want the city to go to them and tell them that they have to take it down.
She's worried this lack of initiative from city leaders, along with the uncertainty around enforcement, could embolden other RV owners to take even more advantage of the situation.
Honestly, is it going to take that thing falling over and then we do something?
Candidate for Mayor Bruce Harrell is very close friends with Carmen Best, and he admitted she's advising him on matters, so it begs the obvious question.
And that, for me, I'm done. Can't do it.
Former Chief Carmen Best could not lay off officers the city council demanded a year ago, so she resigned.
When it's time, it's time.
But she could come back.
One of your most important hires, if you become mayor, will be that of police chief. Would you ask Carmen Best to come back?
So Carmen and I have had many discussions, and I don't want to, as the expression we say, is put her on Front Street. But I will say that what the city council did do, I thought, was poor form.
It was the height of the protests. Police had abandoned these precincts. There was CHOP, a call to defund police by 50%, and the council wanted to cut her salary by 40%.
It just felt very vindictive and very punitive.
As an African-American woman that had faced so much, I think, unfairness in her life, that understood the plea and demands of community, that also understand the need for effective policing, and I think she's a leader.
We wanted to ask the same question to Harrell's challenger, Lorena Gonzalez, but she canceled our scheduled interview with her, and her campaign has not given us a rescheduled date.
She did tell the Seattle Times in June, I think the department could benefit from an external candidate, and told the Northwest Progressive Institute, I am looking for a candidate who is willing to challenge the status quo from within, someone who's not afraid to say no.
You basically gave a positive assessment of Chief Best. What about Adrian Diaz?
There are a lot of decisions that I just read about in the newspaper that I scratch my head on. And I am not seeing the kind of transitional leadership.
Adrian Diaz has been the interim police chief since Carmen Best left and has indicated he liked the job. Now he may know his former chief could be his competition if Bruce Harrell becomes mayor.
And so we've had many conversations throughout my campaign, and I rely on her for advice, and I'll sort of leave it at that.
And Mary and Eric, you know there are strong opinions on both sides of this decision, but the county saying today this approximate 6-week window or so leaves an opportunity for people who have not received their vaccination to do so.
Now, clearly, our COVID-19 response must continue to adapt to the changing reality of the evolving pandemic.
So next month across King County, to protect workers in the community, proof of vaccination will be required in many popular places. It's a move dozens of local restaurants like Cafe Lago have already made.
The reason we first started it was to protect our employees and our employees who have children.
And so far, it's working. Starting October 25th, most restaurants and bars, indoor recreational venues, and outdoor events with 500 people or more will require vaccine verification.
It will make businesses and other public venues safer for customers and workers and our community.
And if you aren't vaccinated, you'll need to show proof of a negative COVID-19 test taken within the last 72 hours.
I want to be clear that this order is not intended to be permanent.
Health Officer Dr. Jeff Duchin says it will be reviewed periodically and no later than 6 months after it starts. An analysis done by UW's Institute for Health Metrics and Evaluation found the vaccine verification policy could have a significant positive impact, preventing infections, hospitalizations, and deaths.
In the model's maximum effect scenario, vaccine verification could prevent up to 20% of infections, hospitalizations, and deaths.
And for Lucas Navy, who's the chef at Cafe Lago, he says it's been the right thing to do to protect his precious 3-year-old daughter.
The only tool that we had to protect ourselves was to make sure that everyone coming in here was vaccinated.
We'd like to know what you think about all this. A KOMO News poll asks if you agree with King County's new vaccination requirements for bars, restaurants, and other public places. Our live results show 27% of you say yes, 71% saying no. The other 2% aren't sure. If you want to vote, go to the poll with the story on our website, KOMOnews.com.
It really is, Eric. And to put it this way, a local doctor who happens to be a former firefighter described the state's healthcare system to me today as sort of like being on fire. There is a tremendous amount of demand. There is a shortage of workers, and those who continue to care for patients, they're simply worn out. They've been at this for roughly 18 months now. They say getting more people vaccinated would greatly help.
Brittany Figcase says it all happened so fast.
It was a nightmare.
Within days of being diagnosed with COVID-19 last month, her husband Anthony went from having a tight chest to being put into a medically induced coma and on a ventilator. He would spend the next 10 days fighting for his life in the ICU at Tacoma General, dozens of miles from home.
Hearing your husband tell you that this could be the last words you hear from him is really scary.
Their heartbreaking story, one of thousands adding to the demand on hospitals statewide in recent weeks. Nearly 1,600 COVID-19 patients are being treated at hospitals statewide today. The vast majority are unvaccinated.
Yeah, it's been incredibly challenging. I think ICU capacity has been our biggest issue.
The Washington Medical Coordination Center helps find space for patients to keep one hospital from getting too overwhelmed. Since July 1st, it's received more than 1,000 requests. And by the time those requests are made, Dr. Steve Mitchell tells me most hospitals have already reached out to several others for help, but failed.
And we have this tool, which is incredible preventative medicine to prevent what's happening in our hospitals, and people aren't using that.
Looking back, Brittany wishes her husband would have been vaccinated sooner, but life, she says, simply got too busy. Thankfully, he was one of the lucky ones, well enough to leave the hospital last week.
I do, in hindsight, wish that we would have made the time to do it. Like I said, there was no reason for us politically or anything like that. We just didn't make the time.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for checking out our YouTube page. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell from the KOMO Weather Team. You can see more of our videos right here by clicking on the video links for additional news from the Seattle area and Western Washington. Oh, and don't forget to click the subscribe button below so you don't ever miss our YouTube updates.